everyone. Welcome to the Sound Bearier, Northeast State's official podcast, where we will be breaking the barrier by getting to know some of our staff and faculty. This is your host, April Allen, and joining us today is Charles Reese, a specialist in the financial aid office. Thank you for being with us today, Charlie.
Well, it's good to be here.
Yeah. So you've been working here for about a year and a half, right?
Yeah, about that, yep.
So how did you come to work to Northeast State?
So I graduated from ETSU the December before I started working here. And it's really as simple as I applied and got the job.
You must have impressed them.
I guess so.
So we know that you work in the financial aid office, but not many know about the work that goes on in the financial aid office. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do in there?
Yeah, students, there definitely is a disconnect between what they see and what we do.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, most of the job, it really just depends on what time of the year it is. Right now, especially everyone being remote, it's mostly just answering emails. But there really is a lot that goes on to it, more than would be worth really bringing up or talking about, or more than people I think would really understand. It's
That's
just
true.
a lot of policy we have to follow, a lot of guidelines. It gets pretty complex.
It does. It's like a foreign language, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
So, in your opinion, why is financial aid important, to students and to Northeast State? Why is it so important and vital that they get financial aid assistance, get their file complete and everything?
Yeah, I mean, I know you and I have talked about this before because we work like 15 feet away from each other.
Yeah.
But, I mean, a lot of students, financial aid is probably the biggest barrier that students really have when it comes to getting into school. I know every student I talk to, if the conversation comes up, I'm like, look, financial aid should be your main priority. You should be starting that at the same time that you're applying to the school, because it takes longer than it does to apply for the school. It takes longer than,
Right.
registering for classes, orientation, all that. It's probably the most complex part of the entire college career, aside from, doing homework and getting stressed out over grades and exams.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Financially, it's probably more stressful.
We want to be a little positive. So.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that students should definitely keep it in mind at all times. As soon as they start the college process, we always try to tell students, get in touch with us periodically. Even if everything's great and everything's going well, still get in touch, because, I mean, sometimes students aren't aware of the things that could
Right.
Interrupt their financial aid.
Right, because everything factors in somehow, doesn't it?
Everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how would you encourage students to not allow their financial aid file stress them out?
Well, like I said, mostly just keeping in touch with us. I mean, you have students, I have students that we just know on a first-name basis because they've just gotten in the habit of coming in, sometimes once a month.
Right.
But these students we see periodic a few times a semester, and, they'll pop in just to say hi, But those are students who do best when it comes to financial aid, because there are never any surprises. They're never having to get stuff done at the last minute. They're not having to stress out over it because they just got in the habit of checking in with us.
Right.
Yeah.
So make it a habit to check in with
Pretty
financial
much.
aid.
Make us your friends.
Yes, because we are friendly, right?
Yeah, we are.
We try to be. So is your degree in financing?
It is. I graduated from ETSU with a degree in finance and real estate.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why financing?
Well, I come from a large family, lots of siblings. I've got 7 siblings.
Wow.
So my family, having to, make that money last, we were pretty poor. We didn't have a lot of money. So one thing I always had at the back of my mind growing up was, how can I afford this? How am I going to pay bills? What am I going to eat? That's always been on my mind. So it only made sense for me to go to college and excel in it, because it's always been a part of who I am, to keep money in mind.
Yeah. I don't think I realized that. That's interesting.
Yep.
Not just because you're money hungry, but...
No, not at all. Not at all. It's just I realized that if you look at statistics, especially when it comes to just everyday well-being of people, and even as far as looking into people's marriages and family health, a lot of it has to do with money.
Right.
I think, I could be wrong, someone quote me on this, but I think the number one reason for divorce is because of money.
Right.
So I don't think you should let money rule your life, but it should definitely be something you take care of.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Good advice. So with that in mind, that makes sense why you're a big Dave Ramsey fan.
Yeah, of course.
So how has this financial plan helped you?
So Dave Ramsey, I didn't even discover him until I was a senior in college.
Okay.
My senior year, I registered for a personal finance class, mostly just because I needed another credit to take another class, and I mean that seemed right up my alley. And the entire class was surrounded Dave Ramsey. All we did was go in, watch his financial self-help videos, and we talk about it. And it was pretty great. So that's how I came about learning about him. But he does have a podcast. I do listen to it periodically. Most of the time on my way to and from work, believe it or not. I try not to listen to it too often though, because it gets my blood pumping. Like I get excited. Like, all right, what's my next financial move? So I don't listen to him too often because of that. But I do like what he has to say. He talks. He doesn't sugarcoat it.
Right.
In his podcast, he'll have people call in and he'll be like, listen, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Don't do that. You're $20,000 in college student loan debt. You don't need to buy that brand new, 2020, I don't know, Toyota Corolla.
Right.
And be like, don't do that. Don't, quit spending money you don't need to be spending. Pay off your credit card. So, it's just really sound advice, really simple. So I do like what he teaches. Just stop spending money when you don't need to.
Yeah, makes sense. You'd think it would be that simple, but somehow we complicate things.
Yeah, I think that's one of the downsides of growing up in a capitalist society. Not to get too philosophical, is people grow up in the U.S. believing that they have to have the newest thing, the biggest thing, like newest iPhone, AirPods.
Right.
Even though those things are cool, I don't own a pair.
Right.
I probably never will, just because there's no reason to spend that money. It could be better put towards something else.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So other than do the Dave, what financial advice can you give our listeners?
Pretty much what I just said. Don't spend what you don't need to. Live below your means. If you can go without, go without. Because, me all the time, when I leave work, I want to stop at McDonald's or something. But I always tell myself, like, no, I've got food at home.
Right. It's so tempting.
Yeah, it is. It takes a little bit of discipline, getting used to. But, once you start doing it, it just becomes habitual. Start small. Learn to not spend $5 a day on a cup of coffee. Make coffee at home.
Why did you say coffee?
No reason. No reason.
I'm going to ignore that.
But yeah, it's just small steps. Start small. Get into a habit. And save where you can. Just save money.
Right.
Especially for that rainy day, because at some point or another, you will need that money for something important.
That's true. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. It's better to save than to have an emergency and then have to spend that money on a credit card, build up interest. It's not good. It's not a healthy financial life to live.
Right. Good advice. Good advice. So it sounds like that you are very passionate about that. And I've actually heard you give that advice to students in the financial aid office.
Yeah.
So it seems like you like to help people. And my grandpa always says there is no better feeling than helping others. Not only do you enjoy assisting students in financial aid and beyond, but you actually help people on a grander scale by serving in the National Guard, which I'm sure many of our listeners don't know that. So can you tell us a little bit about the National Guard and what you do?
Yeah, so I've been in the National Guard since at the end of 2010. So
Wow.
what's that?
10 years.
10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, about a decade. It's pretty fun. There's definitely a lot of things you learn, leadership-wise, because after a while you start to get used to working in that team atmosphere, and eventually you're put in charge of a team, and so you can definitely learn a lot of leadership qualities from it.
Okay, so is that the biggest thing that you're taking away right now from the National Guard?
Definitely, yeah, because my unit, what I do is we do construction. We're an engineer unit, a lot of heavy equipment, stuff like that. So on the civilian side of the National Guard, you know, when we're not deployed overseas, we do a lot of help with disaster relief.
Okay.
So during a hurricane or storms, we're activated a lot of the times
Right.
to help clean up. So that's pretty rewarding in itself to actually help people and not just, you know, deploy overseas in a combat situation, but being able to help people here in the U.S.
Yeah, and thank you for that.
Oh,
We
of course.
appreciate your service and helping those in distress. And I know it's probably not an easy situation to always be in, to see people who are in such dire need due to hurricanes, due to whatever the situation. So thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Do you have an interesting story that you can pull from by being in the National Guard?
I wouldn't say stories, maybe not something I could talk about
Right.
here on a podcast.
Yeah, don't share secrets.
Yeah, something I can't talk about. It's interesting. I don't have any specific stories, but we do spend a lot of time outdoors, a lot of time sleeping out in the woods, honestly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So sometimes it could be more or less a camping trip, but without like the campfire. Instead, you're, you know, up all night. You're in the woods and you're up. You're not sleeping.
Yeah.
You're not in a sleeping bag. You're up and awake and working.
So no s'mores, huh?
No, not often. That's one of the downsides is you don't get a lot of sleep.
Wow. So when you're not giving expert financial aid advice or serving in the National Guard, what do you like to do with your time?
I play a lot of video games, honestly.
Okay, you got to unwind somehow.
Yeah, of course, because, I mean, I still spend a lot of time working to improve myself. Because, like I said, I majored in finance and real estate. So I'm currently in the process of actually getting my real estate license.
Good for you.
So aside from work and working towards that and improving on myself, I mean, sometimes I just, like everybody, they just need something to unwind. And for me, it's usually video games. You know, sometimes I like to mess around with knickknacks. Like I've got small motors that I'll mess around with. I'll take things apart, put them back together. But mostly it's video games. Just, you know, some mindless task that
Yeah.
doesn't require any effort. Just
Right.
go brain dead for a little bit.
That's okay. So when you rebuild your motors, have you ever had any extra parts?
What do you mean?
You know, when you take it apart and
Oh,
put it
yeah,
back
put it
together.
back there. It's like, that should not be there.
Yeah.
Not really. No, I don't do anything. Like, I'm not constructing motors. I'm not a mechanic by any means. My projects are a lot more simplistic. So, like, one time, what are those toys called? They're not Legos. They're like Connect or something. Like, just little...
Oh, yeah.
Well, anyway, I've made a remote control car before.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I had a small motor and I use these Connects to make a small vehicle, put a battery on it. I was able to at least go forward and backward. It's about as far as I could get.
Well,
But
that's still
fun.
pretty creative.
Yeah, it was fun.
So, Charlie, if you could go back in time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell him?
It's ironic that you asked that because, you know, when I was 18, I was in the process of going through an early life crisis, which
Really?
I think everyone goes through. I just don't think it's talked about, you know?
Right, that's true.
Because, you know, at that age, you don't really know what you're doing. You've graduated high school and you don't know what the next step is. And it can be stressful because, you know, you're expected to go to college. So most of the time you're expected to move away from home. And most of the time I don't think 18-year-olds are prepared for that. But it's ironic because my youngest brother is going through that right now. He's 18. He's graduating high school and he's getting ready to move off to college. So I'd probably tell myself the same thing I'm telling him, because he and I are a lot alike. So I've been through that. So luckily he's got me to sort of guide him. But I'm trying not to tell him what he should do.
Right.
Is the thing. I'm just giving him options and making things aware. It's like, listen, you can either go to college, or you can move away, or you can do what I did and stay in my hometown for the next 5 years and do nothing, and eventually have to move away anyway to, progress in life. So yeah, if I could go back, I would just tell myself what I'm telling him now, and just tell him what he needs to be working towards, what his options are. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, sounds good. And hopefully he's taking that advice.
Oh yeah, because he knows we're a lot alike. So he's like, if you've been through it, I'm going to go through the same thing. So he's really good at that.
Right.
Fortunately.
That's good. That's good. So Charlie, I've got one more question for you. If you had any superpower, what would it be and why?
I don't know. There are a lot of good powers, but all of them come with flaws. Like, you could read people's minds.
Yeah, but you don't want to know everything that's going on.
Sometimes you don't want to, No. Like, you run super fast, but, like, what if you tripped,
That would be me.
Awful. Freezing time would be fun. Flying,
Freezing
maybe?
time. Oh, okay.
But then if you're flying, you, like, swallow a bug. That'd be awful. Getting hit in the face with a bird or something.
Yeah.
Man.
Collision's not good.
I don't know. It's like when you have 3 wishes with a genie, be careful what you wish for. Kind of the same thing. Like, I feel like every superpower has its flaw.
That's true.
So I'm content how I am.
Good for you.
But maybe if I could have, like, the power to just have food appear.
That would totally be your power.
Oh,
yeah.
Just have food.
Then you'd be happy.
I would. That'd be great.
There you go. Okay. So now that we know Charlie's secret superpower desire, we appreciate you being our guest, Charlie. And thank you for the good advice that you shared with us and the stories and letting us get to know you a little better. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. And a special thanks to Entertainment Technology for their assistance and hard work. And be sure to join us next time as we continue to break the barrier.